We are in Genesis chapter 37 in verse 12 is where we'll start reading. We're in our series concerning the life of Joseph. Genesis chapter 37 in verse 12. And his brethren went to feed his father's flock in Shechem. And Israel, that's Joseph's father, Israel said unto Joseph, Do not thy brethren feed the flock in Shechem? And I will send thee unto them. And he said unto him, Here am I. And he said to him, Go, I pray thee, see whether it be well with thy brethren, and well with the flocks, and bring me word again. So he sent him out of the vale of Hebron, and he came to Shechem. And a certain man found him, and behold, he was wandering in the field. And the man asked him, saying, What seekest thou? And he said, I seek my brethren. Tell me, I pray thee, where they feed their flocks. And the man said, They are departed hence. For I heard them say, Let us go to Dothan. And Joseph went after his brethren, and found them in Dothan. And when they saw him afar off, even before he came near unto them, they conspired against him to slay him. And they said one to another, Behold, this dreamer cometh. Come, now let us therefore, and let us slay him, and cast him into some pit. And we will say, Some evil beast hath devoured him, and we shall see what will become of his dreams. And Reuben heard it, and he delivered him out of their hands, and said, Let us not kill him. And Reuben said unto them, Shed no blood, but cast him into this pit that is in the wilderness, and lay no hand upon him, that he might rid him out of their hands, to deliver him to his father again. Verse 23, And it came to pass, when Joseph was come unto his brethren, that they stripped Joseph out of his coat of many colors that was on him. And they took him and cast him into a pit. And the pit was empty, there was no water in it. And they sat down to eat bread. And they lifted up their eyes and looked, and behold, a company of Ishmaelites came from Gilead, with their camels bearing spicy and balm and myrrh, going to carry it down to Egypt. And Judah said unto his brethren, What profit is it if we slay our brother and conceal his blood? Come, and let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother and our flesh. And his brethren were content. Then there passed by the Midianites merchantmen, and they drew and lifted up Joseph out of the pit, and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver, and they brought Joseph into Egypt. And Reuben returned unto the pit. Behold, Joseph was not in the pit, and he rent his clothes, and returned unto his brethren, and said, The child is not, and I am whither shall I go? And they took Joseph's coat, and killed a kid of the goats, and dipped the coat in the blood. And they sent the coat of many colors, and they brought it to their father, and said, This have we found. Know now whether it be thy son's coat. And he knew it, and said, It is my son's coat. An evil beast hath devoured him. Joseph is without doubt rent in pieces. And Jacob rent his clothes, and put sackcloth upon his loins, and mourned for his son many days. Let's stop there. We just read the story of when Joseph's brothers were going to kill him. They didn't kill him. They threw him in a pit to leave him for dead. Then they sold him for 20 pieces of silver. A lot of things kind of run together, and you see a lot of things. The 20 pieces of silver stands out. Why does 20 pieces of silver stand out? What did Judas sell out Christ for? 30 pieces of silver. But you still, the fact of selling someone for silver. You have all aspects of it. But Have you ever had those things that happen in your life and you wonder, why did this happen? And you keep looking for good in things and it continues to go downhill? One morning I got up. It's been a pretty good while ago. Got up, went to the car, and the car wouldn't crank. And I said, that's not a problem. We will jump it off. So I went and got another vehicle that I had, pulled it up, went to jump it off, and I couldn't jump it off. I said, that's not a problem. I will go get a battery. It's a place not too far. They opened early. I said, I'll just go get a battery and put it in it. Well, when I went to take the battery out, I realized that I had to take the reservoir off of the top of it that holds the windshield washer fluid. And it was kind of cold. And so I went and got ready to take that off. And when I picked it up, it run all down me. I was not happy at that point. It was Charlotte's car. It didn't have anything to do with it being Charlotte's car. It's just the fact I got it. It was just an inconvenience. Anyway, to make a long story short, I took it off, got the battery, I stuck the reservoir right back on top, and I took off to go get a battery. When I got to the place to get the battery, I've got a battery. I came back, I picked up that same reservoir, and water run all over me again. Charlotte had gone outside while I was gone and put water back in that reservoir. The whole time, the car wouldn't crank. The jumper cables wouldn't work. I had to take the reservoir off. The whole time, I'm going, is it going to get any worse? Is it going to get any worse? I took the reservoir off, water run all over me, and I'm like, what else can happen? I get to the place to get the battery, come back, and pick that reservoir up again, and water run all over me again. And I'm like, Lord, I know you're laughing, because I'm not. And I couldn't figure out what happened. And so I told Charlotte, I said, I can't understand what happened. And she starts, I put water in it. And she started laughing. And I'm like, really? The whole time I'm involved in that process, I'm thinking, Lord, I don't understand how good can come from this. The whole time. And after it was all said and done, I really thought about it. It was good that the car was at home. It was good that we had a second vehicle. It was good that I had jumper cables. It was good that I had enough sense to know how to do it, even though it didn't work. What about that reservoir? Well, I had to have some wrenches, right? It was good that I had wrenches to fit, because I have tried to do stuff when I didn't have wrenches to fit. A man had wrenches and had them put up, and he could never find what he wanted. And so what he did was he needed some. He went to town, bought the ones he needed, come back, fixed what he needed. He went to the well and took all his wrenches and threw them in the well. And he said, next time, I'll know where they're at. It has nothing to do with they wouldn't do him any good. But I had wrenches to fit it. I went to the store. I had a vehicle to get there. When I got to the store, they had the battery. They were open early. They had the battery that I needed. Had the money to pay for it. Come back home, that reservoir was full of water again. Well, what could be good about that? At least we had water to drink. We had running water in the house. I was not happy that Charlotte wasted that water. I still to this day can't believe she did that. You do remember doing that, right? It's good to have a helpful wife, isn't it? Lord really trying me that day, wasn't he? We laugh at things like that, and yes, it's a small thing. I wonder what Joseph really thought. He had the coat of many colors, father's favorite child. All the other ones are out in the field. His father says, go check on them. He shows up. Hey, Dad sent me to check on you. They didn't like him. He had on that coat. They could spot it a mile away. There he comes. They conspired to kill him, find a pit and threw him in it. Wonder if he saw any good in that. Probably not. And then the Ishmaelites come by and they sell him. What if the Ishmaelites hadn't come by? He'd have probably died in that pit. The Bible says there was no water in it. It's not like they were going to send a search party out to get him. We're quick to see these things now, but I'm sure Joseph did not see them. The Bible says this in Colossians chapter 3 and verse 15, let the peace of God rule in your hearts, to the which also ye are called in one body, and be ye thankful. 2 Corinthians 9:11, being enriched in everything in all bountifulness, which causeth through us thanksgiving to God. 2 Corinthians 4:15, for all things are for your sakes, that the abundant grace might through the thanksgiving of many redound to the glory of God. That word redound means to excel and overflow. In other words, we understand God is in control. We say God is in control. But do we realize God's being in control? Things happen to us for good. Things happen to Joseph for good. So when we ask that, am I supposed to be thankful for things? Yes. Am I supposed to understand that God allows things to happen? Well, we must understand. Joseph's life is a picture of Christ to come. God was in control of his own son. He understood it all. Part of being God's plan, number one, he came unto his own. We see that Joseph went to his brethren, but he was not received by his brethren. Sometimes we may see that Jacob was only concerned about one son, but Jacob was concerned about all his children. He did have a favorite. For Joseph, there was no reserves. When it came up in conversation, the words that Joseph used were, here am I. Here am I. Isaiah said, here am I. Send me. Here am I. Joseph didn't have any regrets, or reserves, I should say. We'll get to the regrets in a moment, or return. But notice the Bible tells us that he went to a place called Hebron. Hebron means fellowship. Well, that's where he was. He left the place of fellowship, and he went to the vale of Hebron, or he left that. He went from a place that was of protection to a place of danger. I can't explain all that. Why would he do that? Because his father wanted him to. That's a hard one to understand. Why would any father want their child to leave a place of protection to go to a place of danger? Why would God allow and want his son to go from heaven to earth? Because of you and I. Why would He want him to go from a place of protection to a place of harm? God had a plan in it all. Joseph was a son that was willing. The place that he started out to, Shechem, was a place of bad memories for Jacob's family. It was a place where his sister had lost her moral innocence. A place where the brothers, Simeon and Levi, lost their moral integrity. A place where men were slaughtered. It was a dangerous place, but yet Joseph said, I'll go. Doesn't matter the other brethren were there. Joseph said, I'll go. By the way, is it ever a question in your mind why a group of brothers were there, but yet Joseph was in a place of protection at home? It's because his father wanted it that way. How often would we jump up and say, Lord, I'll go to a dangerous place for you. Lord, my children, it's okay for them to go to a dangerous place for you. We wouldn't do that. We would have some reserves about it. We'd want to know a little more about it. We'd want to know they're going to be okay. No regrets. Folks, you'll never regret serving the Lord. Never will. You'll regret what you didn't do for the Lord, but you'll never regret what you did do for the Lord. A place of no return. Joseph came to Shechem. Actually, Shechem means shoulder. A place to carry your burdens. So from a place of protection to a place of burdens, that's where he went. And burdens are what came upon him. We know that Christ came to bear our burdens. In Matthew chapter 11, verse 28, 29, and 30, it says, Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me. For I am meek and lowly in heart, and ye shall find rest unto your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Why did Jesus come? He came to carry our burdens. What's it said when you say a man has wide shoulders? Are you saying he's a big man? You're saying he can carry a load. God never puts more on us than we can bear. Sometimes we may look at the Lord and say, Are you sure it's not overloaded? And the Lord says, Nope. My burden is light. Take my yoke upon you. Learn of me. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Do you think Joseph could go back after he went to his brethren? In a sense, just like nothing had happened? No. He was going to see things different from that point on. From a place of no returns, place of no regrets. There's an old message: no returns, no reserves, no returns, no regrets. No reserves. What do we hold back from the Lord? Joseph didn't hold anything back. Christ didn't hold anything back for God. When he arrived, notice what Genesis chapter 37, verses 18, 19, and 20, what we have here. And when they saw him afar off, even before he came near unto them, they conspired against him to slay him. And they said one to another, Behold, this dreamer cometh. Remember our prior message? Joseph was a man with dreams. I have a dream. He stood up and told them. His brothers didn't like him. He had another dream. This time he told his father and his brothers. They didn't like it. Behold, this dreamer cometh. Come now, therefore, let us slay him and cast him into some pit. And we say some evil beast hath devoured him, and we shall see what become of his dreams. Well, when Christ came, they rose up upon him to kill him. Jacob had children. He sent Joseph to his brethren, knowing that his brethren didn't like him. But he thought Joseph would be okay. Jacob misread his own children. He didn't understand how wicked they were. He was passive as a parent. He didn't act when he learned of Reuben's infidelity with his own wife. He did not respond when Simeon and Levi lied and then took the lives of the men at Shechem. He didn't take a strong action when Joseph came back with an evil report. He was a passive father. Could he have been passive because he loved his son? By the way, passive parenting does not work. Oh, wait a minute, preacher. I don't agree with that. It doesn't. Children need parents that love them, yes. But they need parents that will lead them in the right direction. Joseph's brothers saw the coat of many colors and it set them off. They already didn't like him. They were way over here away from their brother. And all of a sudden their brother shows up off in a great distance. That coat of many colors stood out and they said, here he comes. Now is our chance. Could you imagine the conversation that takes place? Joseph walks up and he says, hey, Dad misses you and wants you to come home. They said, we're going to go home, but you ain't. They had a plan. What about the brother, Reuben? Do you see how Reuben saved his own brother's life? Just by coming up with the idea, hey, let's not kill him, let's just throw him in the pit. Notice what it says, and we shall see what will become of his dreams. In other words, we're going to take him out of the equation. We're not going to bow down to him. He's not going to rule over us. Who does he think he is? Now's our chance. It's all going to come together right now. Wonder what Joseph thought of that dream when he was in that pit. Did he say, my dreams have ended? Or did he stay true to them? By the way, there's a man now that is a Raleigh policeman. He filled out the application to get on the Raleigh Police Department. And there were some connections within the church. And there was, it's like every other job, there was some political pull, if you will. And so anyway, they were going to hire him. They run a background check and found out one thing that had happened to him, and I'm not going to call his name, I'm going to try to tell it without calling his name, is that when he got married and they were going on their honeymoon, there was a gun in the luggage, and he didn't report it. And so when it went through the scan system or whatever at that time, this was before 9/11, it threw a red flag. And so that was on his record, even though it just showed up and it sent a red flag. And so the Raleigh Police Department wouldn't hire him at that time. And he was planning on getting it. And he had tried over and over. He had explained it. He had everything cleared. I mean, everything was going, but they still wouldn't hire him. He had a vision. He believed one day he was going to be a Raleigh policeman. He believed that was God's will. Everything lined up, but they wouldn't hire him. The man in charge, or actually not the chief of police, the second in command at that time, was in charge of the hiring in the academy and all. The academy was going to start on a Monday. They had already made their selection. They had ruled this guy out. That he'd already been notified he was not going to be hired. He was heartbroken. Pastor Payne preached a message, a vision, the death of a vision, the resurrection of a vision. On Friday, they got a call at the police department that one of the candidates was declining and was not going to show up on Monday. This man had already accepted it. He still believed he was going to be a policeman, didn't know how, with the Raleigh Police Department. The second man in charge knew all of the situation and knew the fellow very good. He went into the chief and he said, look, I've got a man that'll be there on Monday morning, but you've already kicked him out. And they had a conversation. He said, I tell you what, bring me another application. It won't be him. It just didn't look like it was going to happen. Finally, after a couple of hours of figuring out what they could do, what they couldn't do, man went back in the policeman's office. He said, I've got 2 applications. One of them is the man that you said you wouldn't hire because of the background. The other one is the only other person that we think would show up Monday. Nobody else is available. The police chief said, lay him on my desk upside down. Call this one. So you know what they did? They called the other person to come to the academy on Monday morning. When they called him, he said, nope, I've already accepted somewhere else. That left the only one. Ruled him out. That young man became a Raleigh policeman. He is probably, if he hasn't retired, he's very close to his retirement by now. I'll never forget the message, a vision, the death of a vision, the resurrection of a vision. God often works that way. It's a picture of baptism. Death, burial, resurrection. It's a picture of the Lord Jesus Christ. Wonder what Joseph thought when he was in that pit. Hey, is it really going to happen? Am I crazy? I'm in this pit. And then later, we find he's taken to a different country. But yet his dream is still there. Notice verses 13 and 14. I'm done with this. As God moves forward. And he said unto Abram, this is go to Genesis chapter 15, verses 13 and 14. Through the actions of Joseph's wicked brothers, of a 17-year-old boy, he ends up in Egypt in Potiphar's house. How could God make it any better? Genesis 15, verses 13 and 14, it says, And he said unto Abram, Know of surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterward shall they come out with great substance. It was all part of God's plan to have Joseph in the right place. What man meant for evil, God meant it for good. And often man is evil, but God is always good. Always. So when things happen in your life, now don't get me wrong, things happen to me because of what I have wounds in my life, and they're self-inflicted. I caused them. I don't know if y'all noticed or not, but on my thumb, can y'all see that black dot? Can y'all see it? Okay, I'm going to tell you what happened. Charlotte got mad at me and hit me with the hammer. That's not what happened. My wife would not do that to me. Neither would I do that to her. Not planning on doing it to her. No, it's not going to happen. That's a self-inflicted wound. I caused it. I cannot blame God for it. God allowed it to happen. God could have stopped it. But God allowed it to happen. But I caused it. Sometimes things happen in our life and we look at God and say, God, why didn't you stop that? And God looks at us and says, why did you do it? You see that hand? See those little scars and what on that hand? I did it. You know what I did when I did it? I looked at it and I said, God, why'd you do that? God didn't do it. And it's just plain as day. It's just like God said, I didn't do it, you did. Why'd you do it? You knew better. And I did. Because that's not the first time that I did that, doing that same thing. And then I said, well, I am a dummy. I didn't learn by my mistake. And you know, it's just like God said, I agree. In Joseph's case, were the things that happened in his life self-inflicted? No. Oh, yeah, some of them were. His brothers throwing him in that pit weren't self-inflicted. Those were things that are out of his control. But God is in control of it all. And that's a hard thing for some people to understand. Where was God, or why did God not stop the events on 9/11? Fast forward. Why did God not stop COVID? He could have. Because there's going to be something good come out of it. Why did God allow the elections to turn out like they did? Well, that's yet to be seen, but something good will come out of it. I can't explain what. Heads bowed, eyes closed. Are things going on in your life that you wonder where's the good? For those listening by means of the internet, thank you for joining us. God is in control. You say, well, he'll put the pieces of the puzzle back together if we give them to him. He can put them back together because he can take them from you. God's in control, period. we can help you at Riverside Baptist Church, be sure to contact us. Thank you for joining us.